Minister, the preamble in your bill suggests that it will give effect to Directive 219/1 of the European Parliament and of the Council of the 11th of December 2018 to empower the competition authorities of the Member States to be more effective enforcers and to ensure the proper functioning of the internal market, ECN+, or the European Competitions Network. Essentially, it's an alignment of our competition law with the present EU legislation. You also suggest, Minister, that the enactment of this legislation, further to some additional amendments you wish to propose, will strengthen the powers of the state in tackling white-collar crime, economic crime and corruption. I suppose, Minister, we have heard others in the House the discussion of specific sectors of concern, such as public sector procurement, the construction industry, the insurance services and possibly even legal services and financial services sectors. And so I'd ask you a question, Minister. The legislation that you're proposing today, if the question was asked in the House today, what, where and on whom were sanctions placed as a result of the banking crisis, what the answer would be and how this legislation might actually overturn that. And do we seriously think that there was significant effort made to criminally pursue those who colluded regarding the positioning of interest rates, the over-reporting of assets, the under-declaring of positions with respect to currency hedging and contracts for difference? And again, how would this legislation that you are now proposing, how would it treat that situation again? I think we know, Minister, we largely failed in our obligation to hold those who are criminally colluding to account within the banking crisis. I think most people would like to know now, if this legislation is enacted, will we be protected from such a repeat scenario, and does this legislation deliver the required deterrent by way of criminal sanctions? A significant emphasis has been placed by you, Minister, on the ability of this legislation framed within the context of European competition network law as being positioned to combat national and international cartels. But, Minister, how would we know if such cartels are in operation, considering up to now the difficulty in surveilling and getting access to financial statements and records? In the bill, you describe that the powers of comrage and the CCPC are to be strengthened and somewhat merged in order to meet this challenge, and that future surveillance powers and powers of entry will assist this battle. And this is welcome, Minister, but will it be enough? I imagine companies who engage in international price collusion, who deliberately set out to rig bids, who deliberately compete for some tenders but strategically withdraw for others, are not waiting around with their filing cabinets full of incriminating evidence, waiting for the CCPC to come and knock on their door or Comreg. In the case of public procurement, Minister, surely analysis of tender bids would point to possible price fixing. But given that many of our large-scale public procurement tenders are refined down to a shortlist of 3 to 5, it is difficult to see where and how significant price collusion might be occurring. Quantity surveillance and measurement software would probably indicate where significant or even extraordinary price gouging is taking place, if only we had the ability to properly implement it. I have raised in this House, Minister, a number of times the price of general building materials in this country and how they are so similarly aligned. And yet it is possible to buy similar quantities of these materials on the European mainland at significant price reductions, not explainable by transport costs, warehousing or other logistics. In the context of a free European market with open borders and transparent pricing, how does this situation persist? In terms of building specifications, has your department, Minister, any intention of looking at the material specification and what manufacturers are specified within public procurement tender contracts? How is it, for example, that we can arrive at specifications and dimensions for timber and insulation materials, for example, that are not specified in other European country tenders, thereby offering much wider choice and better cost options? You have highlighted our dysfunctional car insurance industry, Minister, the deliberate concealing of insurance fees and claims data for years that would have allowed further international motor insurance underwriting if potential competitor companies were able to assess the market intelligence and dynamics that were taking place but they were precluded, and this resulted in no new appetite to enter the market for many years. I know this situation has been largely resolved with respect to the motor insurance sector, and we now have up to 40 companies bidding for motor insurance in this country. But what were the sanctions, Minister, prescribed from the CCPC for those companies who were in effect breaking European consumer law? Despite progress in the motor insurance market, do you believe, Minister, there might be anti-competitive practices still ongoing in relation to personal indemnity insurance, employers' liability insurance, occupiers' liability insurance? Could instances of fraudulent personal injury claims supported in some instances by legal professionals not be considered to be anti-competitive as well as downright criminal? Will this legislation that you are proposing here tonight, Minister, tackle the white-collar crime and provide civil and criminal sanctions for those found guilty of same? And will they be pursued? I fully understand the need for this legislation to comply with European legislation and for our courts to integrate accordingly. But we have a history, Minister, in this country of not pursuing white-collar crime. Even when we do, derisory financial punishments are usually the order of the day. If there is teeth to this legislation, Minister, the public will need to see them in order to have any confidence that this is a game-changing proposal of yours, which I hope it is.